thank you all for coming out today for this important event in our community. We know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, making plans can be more than a little bit tricky, but it's incredible to see such significant community support for the Black Lives Matter movement. As a predominantly white town, race and racism are issues that many of us don't have to overcome or even think about on a daily basis. It's all too easy for many white allies in our town to remain silent, uneducated, and complacent, while leaders in the Black community have been working for decades to create necessary change without and often against majority support. The truth about the fight for justice in this country is that it's been carried on the shoulders of Black leaders for years. And for years, the white majority in America has ignored, slowed, and blocked reforms. According to the New York Times, support among American voters for the Black Lives Matter movement has increased as much in the last 2 weeks as it had in 2 years before that. The demands of the Black community have not radically changed in the last 2 weeks. White allies are just incredibly late when it comes to supporting the voices of a community whose experiences are different from ours and who knew better than we ever could what demands must be met to achieve equality. We're not here today just to show our love for the Black community and say that we support them. We're here to uplift Black voices, educate ourselves about their stories and their demands, and to connect with resources that will help us forward the necessary actions that they have proposed in order to make real change in this country. Assembling today is not enough. We encourage you throughout this event to listen with an open mind, have conversations with those around you, and connect with resources available here to decide what you're going to do in the future to support the movement. Today is just the beginning, and what happens next is up to all of you. Thank you for coming, and give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Representative Sheila Stubbs.
Come on and open up your mouth. Woo! Black Lives Matter. Can you help me say that? Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
No justice, no peace.
All right, thank you, thank you, thank you. Come on and put your hands together. I am so honored to be given this opportunity to come and address you on today. My name is Wisconsin State Representative Sheila Stubbs, and I represent the 77th Assembly District. Come on! The 77th Assembly District is comprised of the south and west parts of Madison, the village of Shorewood Hills, and the UW campus. I am history. I am the first African American to ever be elected to the state legislature from Dane County. I stand here because I've broken a lot of glass. And because I was elected in 2018, I shattered 170 years worth of history. I would be remiss if I don't also acknowledge I have 2 jobs. My second job is I'm a Dane County Board Supervisor. I represent the 23rd District of South Madison. I've been in that position for 15 years. I've been in this struggle for 15 years. And I'm standing here today to say we need additional change. Enough is enough is enough. Some of you may know my stories, other of you may not have never heard my story, but let me share my story with you. Back in 2018 on August 7th in Madison, Wisconsin, I was out simply knocking on doors. Knocking on doors. On the west side of Madison, I have been on that street about 20 minutes. My mother, who was 71 years old, and my 8-year-old daughter. As I knocked on doors, I was at a house maybe 8 doors down from where I initially started on the block, when I noticed a Madison police officer had pulled behind my car. In my car was my 71-year-old mother and my 8-year-old daughter. As I was talking to a future constituent, I said to them, I noticed the police had pulled behind my door, my car. And I said, you know what, is it okay if I come back and talk with you about my candidacy, but I really need to figure out what's happening with this police officer behind my car. Of course they said, yes, Sheila, you've proven yourself, I'm gonna support you, please go ahead and see what's happening. So I actually walked over to my car, met the officer, said, hello, my name is Sheila Stubbs, did something happen? I noticed that you are behind my car. And the officer said, oh yes, something happened. And I said, well, what happened? And she said, well, they think you're a drug dealer. And I said, me? A drug dealer? Can you tell me what a drug dealer looks like? And I had, again, only been on the streets for 20 minutes. She began to ask me, why was I on the street? Why was I in that neighborhood? Let me be real clear with you. That was 2018. And why was I on that street in that neighborhood at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday? Well, I began to show her my name tag that said Sheila Stubbs, candidate for the Assembly District number 77. That wasn't enough. She still asked me why was I on that street. I showed her my campaign lit that had my photo on it with all my information. That still was not enough. She said to me, you're going door to door in this neighborhood. Why are you going door to door in this neighborhood? And I said, because I'm a candidate for the state assembly. And she says, well, how do you know what doors to knock on? And I said, because I have a walk list. That wasn't enough. She said, I need to see your walk list. Again, this is 2018 in Madison, Wisconsin. So I show her my walk list. Then she needed to see my ID. So I showed her my driver's license. Again, this is 2018. It was at that point she began to say, I'm sorry. But here I was, degraded, humiliated, discouraged, embarrassed, that I was already decided that I had committed a crime, that I was a drug dealer, because someone called the police on me because they thought I was buying drugs at the local drugstore on the west side of Madison at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You know what I was? I was racially profiled. My race was out of place in that neighborhood. And that's why I can stand here today and say enough is enough is enough. I can go on and tell you what else happened, which was my mother had been encountered by this officer, even though she shared with her why we were there. That wasn't enough. Even when I said why I was there, that still wasn't enough. We were not believable. I can stand here today and say to you, I still don't know who called the police on me. Even after I asked the officer to let me speak with the caller, I could not speak with the caller. But yet I was already guilty before I was even given a chance to prove why I was who I was. And so today I have to stand here on this stage and tell you all black lives do matter. Must I share with you this story that I was 7 days out from my election. I did win my election by over 50% in that district. I, Sheila Stubbs, had the audacity to run for office. And you know what the end of my story was? And now I am your state representative. And now, George Floyd, may he rest in peace, power to the people, as he is a catalyst and a cornerstone for change. He died, he's resting in his peace, but did he not know that he was the sacrifice lamb for the globe, for the world, all because he laid there and said, I can't breathe. And I believe everyone around the world could sympathize and empathize with him when he called on his mother who was deceased. I just believe that call, that cry lifted up people who would never be a part of this movement to say enough was enough. It wasn't enough in 1992 when Rodney King was beaten by the Los Angeles police officers. Was it enough in 2012 when Trayvon Martin was killed? Was it enough in 2015 when Sandra Bland was killed? Was it enough when Tony Robinson was killed right in Madison, Wisconsin in 2015? Was it enough when Breonna Taylor was killed in 2020? Was it enough when Eric Garner died and he said the words, "I can't breathe"? Is it enough? Is it enough for us to stand up for justice? And that's why I can stand and say, no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. I said no justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. It's because I recognize their lives were sacrificed for all of us. We all know we've been there before, but I hope we don't have to revisit that again. Ida B. Wells, a long journalist. I'm an NAACP, so I love Ida B. Wells, who started a documentary with the systemic murders and the death of Black people who were lynched. In 1892, Ida B. Wells wrote one of her first publications about lynching, the horrendous killing of Black people, Black men who were exposed to their real reasons for lynching time after time after time. And there's no need to keep us secondhand or in the second class, as she began to say. Can we say that nearly 9 minutes of this officer on the neck of George Floyd is enough of 9 minutes for us to change this systemic, dismantle this racist system, these policies, these practices, these trainings, when we as Americans, we as United States, we as Africa, America, all these countries should stand up and say, we can't breathe. Enough of your systems. I stand here today to say there are so many policies, so many bills that are at our state capitol that could be passed right now. We need your help to come in your capital and cause our colleagues on the other side of the aisle to stand with us. We need these laws and these rules to be changed. I introduced a policy called End Racial Disparities across the state of Wisconsin. I need you to stand with me. That particular bill came from my profiling situation myself. And I believe you believe with me, we need to end racial profiling across this globe. I've gone to rally after rally and march after march, and this is what I hear our young people say. Change your policies, change your trainings, change your policies, change your trainings, defund your agencies. That's what I hear them say to me over and over and over again. I hear them say to me that it needs to be done now. They don't want to wait another minute. They don't want us to have another listening session. They don't want us to have a kumbaya moment. They are demanding, our young people are demanding change right now. Right now. This movement is real. Our youth are in so much pain. There are so many people that are in pain right now from watching the death of Mr. Floyd. There are so many people now that want to join this movement because they are standing up with Black Americans, with Black people all over the world and saying, we would join you, my sister. We would join you, my brother, because we are going to stand up with you. For far too long have we as African Americans tried it by ourselves. Have we made progress? Yeah. But it's something about when privilege stands with someone who's never had it. It's something about when you are able to go home and have those conversations about racism and prejudice and perceptions and biases with your household that I'm having every day. See, I don't stand and talk the talk. I walk the walk. I was given. Go ahead and put your hands together. See, I was given the name Game Changer because for far too long, the game has been played with the same drum, the same beat, the same goal. But when I got elected in 2018 and I got sworn in 2019, our state capitol has never been the same. I put my life out many times, going to many marches because I believe in change. And today, because you are standing here, because today you are going to march, because today you are part of this rally, because of you, I can stand here today and say, I'm tearful, I'm hurtful, but I can stand here today and say Black lives, they do matter. I can stand here today for the first time and say no justice, no peace, and it really means that I have help along this journey. For the first time, I've had to stand at this podium. Thank you for the invitation to Mount Horeb. I've been here knocking doors to get our governor elected, but thank you, Mount Horeb. I really mean that. Thank you for allowing me, a Black woman, the first Black woman elected to the state legislature, to come here on your stage and tell you what you're doing do matter. I need you and you need me, and together we will change this society. God bless you. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. God bless you.
A huge thank you to Representative Sheila Stubbs for coming out today to speak with us and for her impactful words. Can we get like one more round of applause? Yeah. An important component of the Black Lives Matter movement is remembering and fighting for justice for the innocent lives that have been lost to racial profiling and police brutality. We wanted to take this time today to remember these lives and reflect on the systematic racism, unaccountability, and inaction that plagues our criminal justice system and causes so much undue harm.
On April 28, 2019, Isaiah Lewis was 17 years old and less than 3 weeks away from graduating high school at Boulevard Academy in Oklahoma. On April 29th, a call was made to Edmond police by a woman who claimed Lewis had been beating his girlfriend. After that call, Lewis was tased, then shot multiple times as he ran unarmed from police. He was then transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival. His girlfriend later denied allegations that he had hit her and said she didn't think the police needed to get involved at all. He doesn't get to graduate on May 18th like he could have, his mother said. He didn't get to go to the prom. He didn't get his driver's license. There are a whole lot of firsts that he got to miss, and I don't get to see him for the rest of his life, for the rest of my life.
Going to bed the evening of March 12th. Breonna Taylor was a 26-year-old emergency room technician, helping in the fight against COVID-19, and with dreams to become a nurse and start a family. Shortly after midnight on March 13th, police used a battering ram to crash into Taylor's apartment, where she was asleep with her boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. Unaware that the intruders were police, Walker fired a shot at the officers. The gunfire returned by police struck Taylor at least 8 times. Taylor's apartment was being searched as part of a narcotics raid on a house blocks away. Police believed the dealers were using Taylor's address to receive packages. The search was conducted, and no drugs were found anywhere in the apartment. The earliest news stories covering her death didn't mention her name at all, instead focusing on an injury to a police officer and referring to Taylor and Walker as suspects. Although family and friends are grateful that her name is where it should be now, with her death inspiring change around the world, it doesn't change the loss her family feels, with her aunt saying, "But we don't want this at all. We want her back. I would rather just go back in time."
On the morning of May 25th, 2019, 28-year-old Deon Johnson was found by an Arizona state trooper asleep in his car, presumably intoxicated. The trooper removed Johnson's gun from the car while he was unconscious, but later shot Johnson during an altercation as he tried to arrest him, who had been disarmed. Video released after the event shows Johnson struggling to get up and being kicked down by a responding officer. His family's attorney claims that he might have survived if he had received more immediate care. The video has no audio, but pans to an ambulance waiting at the shoulder of the highway before approaching the scene at the end of the video. The video lasts just under 6 minutes. After watching the video, Johnson's mother, Irma Johnson, said, "When I finally got a chance to look at that video today, I was devastated. I really couldn't believe my eyes. I couldn't believe that someone that's supposed to protect and serve would treat a human being the way he treated my son. When he was shot, handcuffed, thrown to the ground, obviously because he was in the car when they shot him and he was on the ground in the back of the vehicle. He was trying to get up. My son was fighting for his life. He was trying to get up and the officer kicked him back down. That's cruel. You don't see that happen to animals." Loved ones remember Deon as unconditionally giving, and his brother Dustin says, "It broke my heart, my soul, everything. I've been out here marching since Trayvon Martin got killed, and I never thought in my wildest dreams or anything that it would happen to my family."
On March 3rd, 2020, 33-year-old Manuel Ellis died of hypoxia after being restrained by Tacoma police. Unarmed, Ellis was restrained face down on the ground by police, even after saying, "Can't breathe." Medics arrived on the scene 7 minutes later and struggled for nearly 40 minutes to stabilize Ellis, but the CPR and intubation failed, and Ellis was pronounced dead at the scene. Manuel Ellis is remembered as a talented musician who played drums at church up to 4 nights a week, and had played at his church even on the day of his death. His mother, Marcia Carter, said she spoke with her son shortly before his police encounter. "Remember, I love you. Those are the last words I heard my son say to me," Carter said through tears after his death. "I can't hear that ever again. I won't be able to hear that."
On December 2nd, 2019, 28-year-old Michael Dean was shot in the head by a Temple police officer after being pulled over for speeding. The officer ordered the father of 3 to turn off his vehicle and hand him the keys. Officer DeCruz had the handgun pointed at Dean with his finger on the trigger. He is seen reaching into Dean's vehicle in an attempt to gain control of the keys to the vehicle with his left hand while holding his duty-issued firearm, his handgun, in his right hand, according to the legal document. DeCruz pulled him the keys with his left hand, while with his right hand he pulled backwards on the gun, causing it to fire, subsequently striking Dean in the head. His sisters called for action through voting in response to his death, saying, "We are not done. We are not done fighting. This right now is for our brother, but this is also for anyone else who could be in our position."
The night of October 11th, 2019, 28-year-old Tatiana Jefferson was playing video games with her 8-year-old nephew, with the doors to her house open to allow the night breeze in through the screen, which was shut. A concerned neighbor called the non-emergency Fort Worth police line to check in on his neighbor in the early hours of October 12th, informing police that it was unusual that they would have the door open so late, and that he couldn't see anyone in the house, despite the lights being on. After being called to check in on Jefferson, police walked around the outside of the residence without knocking or identifying themselves. Jefferson heard a noise outside and went to the window, at which point one of the responding officers began yelling for her to put her hands up and shooting into the window without waiting for a response. Tatiana was shot at least 6 times and died in front of her 8-year-old nephew in her own home. His mother and Tatiana's sister speaks to the pain of losing her sister and the strength her son has shown, saying, "In the middle of the night, when I'm crying, he wakes up and tells me to breathe in my nose and out my mouth. He holds me, he hugs me. These are the things that I should be doing for him, but he's not reacting in that manner." Family and friends remember Tatiana for the unconditional love she showed to everyone around her, and say they hope that the world will be honorable when it comes to narrating the memory of her beautiful soul.
On September 14th, 2019, 54-year-old Melvin Watkins was shot and killed by police as he left a 95-year-old relative's birthday party. The police had been called after Watkins had a physical altercation with another attendee of the party, but Watkins was leaving the party peacefully and unarmed when he was shot in the chest 2 times through his windshield by the responding East Baton Rouge deputy. After losing consciousness due to his injuries, Watkins' foot slipped off the brake, causing the car to roll slowly forward. The officer then shot 5 more shots through the passenger side window at Watkins. One family member described the deputy's reaction as devastating. He didn't even ask what was going on. Margaret Watkins said he just told him to stop the car, and the next thing you know, he shot him. Melvin Watkins was a car mechanic and is remembered by his family as being funny and loud with an upbeat personality. He was helpful and handy, always offering to fix things around relatives' homes. "I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life," said Margaret Gibbs Watkins, Melvin Watkins' widow, who witnessed her husband's shooting.
On August 26, 2019, 33-year-old Shannara Tomfeep was shot and killed by a Knoxville police officer after a physical altercation following a car accident. After being shot twice, Feep ran a short distance before collapsing next to a nearby dumpster where he died. Witness accounts of the incident are conflicting, and the officer involved was never charged. Feep is remembered by his loving family, who stated, "He was a great man, positive no matter what he was going through. He uplifted others daily with his light. No matter what, he was by his family's side and there to guide them through anything. He encouraged his family to finish school, prepare for the future, work hard, and treat each other with kindness. Losing him means losing the backbone of our family. He kept everyone connected and would be the mediator when needed. We have lost a son, brother, uncle, and most importantly, his children have lost their father. His loss has truly devastated us."
On March 29, 2019, 57-year-old Kevin Bruce Mason was shot and killed by police during a standoff with the police at his home, during which he was unarmed. Several shots were fired at Mason outside of his home. After being shot, he retreated into his home where he died. We have more questions today than we did yesterday. I watched the video. I still don't understand why after you shot him, you called in a hostage negotiator rather than get him medical help, his sister Kimberly Mason said. "I don't care what anyone says. He was killed because he was a black man," she continued.
On April 29, 2017, Jordan Edwards, a 15-year-old African-American boy, was fatally shot by police officer Roy Oliver in Bulk Springs, Texas. He was shot in the back of the head while riding in the front passenger seat of a vehicle driving away from officers that attempted to stop it. He was unarmed during the encounter. "It's hard walking past his room knowing I can't go in there and fuss at him to get up," said his stepmother, Charmaine Edwards. "Like I told Chief Haver, Our kids are supposed to look up to y'all for protection, but you are the ones that are killing them, she said. That's not okay. If they can't trust you, then that is an issue. She says her kids, black children, all children, should not grow up fearing the police. I try to teach my kids not all police are bad, but look at everything that's going on. Our family will never be the same. The kids will never be the same.
On December 26, 2015, Chicago police officer Robert Rialmo shot and killed 60-year-old Betty Jones. Police had been called for a domestic disturbance in her neighbor's apartment, but Jones opened the door and Rialmo said he accidentally shot her. Her daughter, Letitia Jones, said on Wednesday that she was going to open the front door for police, but her mother insisted, "I will open my own door." Letitia Jones said she heard a volley of gunshots moments later and assumed it was from nearby gang members. Once they stopped, she said she ran to tell her mother to get down. Instead, she found her mother lying in the entrance of the apartment. She testified that she initially thought her mother had passed out, but quickly realized she had been shot. "When I moved my hand, I saw that it had blood on it," she said. Letitia Jones described hearing her mother gasping for breath and remembered telling her, it's okay, please fight it." Betty Jones died from her wounds in the apartment, and Robert Rialmo was found not guilty after being charged with wrongful death. On October 17, 2018, 18-year-old Charles Roundtree was killed after a San Antonio police officer shot him, saying he was trying to shoot a suspect in the same room. Roundtree was unarmed and was found not to be involved in the incident that caused the initial call to the police. "He didn't deserve to die that night," said Roundtree's mother, Bernice. "He was there just waiting for his friend, and he was shot and killed by a coward wearing a badge. The officer responsible was never indicted. He needs to pay for what he's done," his mother continued. "He's a murderer like anyone else. He shouldn't be able to get away with it just because he has on a badge."
On July 6, 2016, Philando Castile, a 32-year-old African-American man, was fatally shot during a traffic stop by a 28-year-old police officer from St. Anthony, Minnesota. The officer, Mr. Yanez, told Mr. Castile he pulled him over because a brake light was out before he had asked for his driver's license and insurance. Mr. Castile handed him the documentation and said, "Sir, I have to tell you, I do have a firearm on me." "Okay, don't reach for it then," Mr. Yanez is heard saying while appearing to reach for his own weapon. "Don't pull it out." The officer again repeated, "Don't pull it out," in a loud voice as he drew his own gun and fired inside the car multiple times. The officer ordered Miss Castile's girlfriend, Miss Reynolds, who was heard screaming, not to move and began shouting expletives. After the shooting, the second officer escorted Miss Reynolds' daughter from the back seat of the vehicle. Miss Reynolds is heard explaining that her boyfriend was reaching for his ID, to which Mr. Yanez replied, "I told him not to reach for it." The officer was acquitted of all charges.
On May 25, 2020, George Floyd was arrested after a convenience store employee believed he had handed a counterfeit $20 bill. The officers restrained Floyd face down, kneeling on his neck to hold him down for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, as he told officers he couldn't breathe and begged for air. Floyd died to hypoxia from being restrained by police after saying a variant of "I can't breathe" 16 times without response from the officers. George Floyd was an active member of his church community, volunteered as a security guard for a local homeless shelter, and is remembered for his positive, caring spirit. A friend said the last time I talked to him was about a year ago, and every conversation we had in that year was about bettering ourselves and being better fathers. That's all he talked about. Floyd is a father to 2 daughters, the youngest of which is 6 years old. "I want justice for his kids," his friend continues. "I want his kids to be taken care of. Their father is not here."
So just a few days ago, in Philly, right by the river, they found a dismembered body of a black trans woman. And I feel like that's something that never really gets to be talked about, is how black trans women are heavily targeted. And nobody seems to be talk about it or conversate. And I feel like they are the ones who are being targeted the most, and we need to start protecting them as well. The name was Dominique Remy Fells. That was her name, Dominique Remy Fells. Just found a few days ago, found in the river in a bag, her body dismembered. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you for including that. Taking a knee is an important symbol in support of the Black Lives Matter movement, and if you are able, we invite you to take a knee with us. These stories are tied together by patterns of systemic racism, abuse, and unfounded accusations and violence against Black people in this country. These deaths were not caused by 14 bad apples in an otherwise pure profession, but by officers acting on behalf of an institution that was built to keep Black bodies enslaved, that went on to enforce their separation from white society, and which continues to incarcerate and brutalize them at disproportionately higher rates than it does their white counterparts. As you know from the stories you just heard, police brutality isn't just a crime against the innocent. It's a crime against church musicians, homeless shelter volunteers, children, parents, brothers, and sisters. It destroys lives, families, and the trust that all people should have that they will not be killed in their own homes and streets by those who have pledged to protect and serve them. These deaths are not freak accidents. They are symptomatic of the racism that Black and brown Americans face every day, a fatal consequence of a system that harms so many more than we could list today. At this time, we would like to take an 8-minute, 46-second moment of silence in remembrance of George Floyd and the other innocent lives lost due to police violence. George Floyd was restrained on the ground 8 minutes and 46 seconds prior to his death. Take this time to reflect on the stories you just heard and set your own resolve for action around this issue in our community, in your workplace, in your home, and beyond. Please rise for the moment of silence.